Speaker, I will admit that I am pleased that the deal worked out between Democratic leadership and Republicans to keep the government open until October does not include funding for the president's tremendous border wall. But let's put that in perspective. A border wall will not deport thousands of people living and working in cities across the nation, or moms and dads in my neighborhood. A border wall will not deport anyone, and seriously doubt it would do any good keeping anyone out either. Building a 3,000-mile wall is a hugely expensive boondoggle to solve a policy problem many say we don't have. Border apprehensions have been going down steadily for years, and now we have people fleeing violence and persecution who are so scared of us, they are deciding not to come to America and are applying for asylum somewhere else. They are not taking their legitimate claims for political asylum and safety to the nation that is the hallmark of freedom. So while even Donald Trump admits that border apprehensions are significantly down, he says 75%, it's not necessarily for reasons we should be proud of. But a wall? Are policy experts and pundits really discussing whether 5th century technology plays a role in modern homeland security? The Great Wall of China boosts tourism. It's not a factor in national security. What concerns me more is that the spending on deportation that is still in the bill we will be voting on today. $1.2 billion of Trump's original $3 billion request for border security and interior enforcement is still there. And any money we give those agencies at this point will find its way into funding the president's mass deportation agenda. Now, imagine if we were applauding the approval of a budget that had $1.2 billion in new funding to roll back Roe versus Wade, additional funding from the federal government to restrict women's health care and reproductive rights. Well, I'd never vote for that budget. But what if Trump asked us for $3 billion, but we only gave him $1.2 billion to undermine workplace safety laws and labor rights? I'd never do that. Let's just say it was $1.2 billion to defeat environmental regulations and protect clean air and water. Would we celebrate? I don't think so. Would we celebrate $1.2 billion additional money to weaken the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts? Would we celebrate more money to combat and weaken same-sex marriage or take away transgender rights? I wouldn't. Adding $1.2 billion to the budget to make it easier for the U.S. government to deport people should never be celebrated by any of us, and certainly not in the era of Trump, when we know their #1 policy priority is to scare immigrants into leaving or not coming in the first place. Look, the people who will be deported with the money we are voting on are usually people with no criminal background and deep roots in their communities. They are parents, teachers, business owners, mostly people of color who have lived and worked here a long time and are here in many cases seeking refuge, as is their right under our laws and international law. Yes, some are dangerous criminals, but don't believe the hype. The Trump administration and Attorney General Jeff Sessions are overhauling who we define as serious criminals so they can make their deportation force look benign, sometimes even beneficial. Mr. Speaker, I will not be voting for the omnibus bill because I don't believe that it's okay to slip another million here or there into the budget to break up and destroy families, put moms and dads in detention, and send dreamers out of the country, the only country they've ever known. I've looked into the eyes of children, of kids, U.S. citizens whose parents have been deported. I've spoken to teachers in Chicago and across the country who have to deal with the fear in their students' lives every day. I've worked for decades with families who've complied. Yes, for decades, I've worked with families who have complied with every order they've been given by Homeland Security and have reported to authorities like clockwork. But now when they report, they're deported from the United States of America. I cannot turn around and bless more money for a machinery that is grinding up families. I just won't do it. And I'll not turn my back on the immigrant community of the United States of America by supporting funding that will be used to detain immigrants in private jails and put them on airplanes out of the country. As long as we are going to shortchange health care in Puerto Rico and subsidize the deportation of families in Chicago, the budget will not have my vote.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Land.